Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you today to talk about a topic that's probably near and dear to a lot of people here in the room. It affects about 40% of the continental United States in some way or another. And I'll kind of lay that out for you in a few other slides. But, you know, the historic flood has adversely impacted a lot of folks that live in the Ohio River Valley and also in the Mississippi Valley watersheds. And as you can see from the title, Operation Watershed, that really is the name of the flood fight that's currently going on in the lower Mississippi River. And it is real, and it's very personal for a lot of people. But one of our themes that we have done in the Corps on this is talk about reducing risk. It's not about flood protection, it's about reducing risk. Flood protection is part of that, but if you look at it as a system, reducing risk is the real key message that you want to get across to people in communities. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my experiences down in New Orleans before I came up to the headquarters. And one thing that's also very important is the proper operation of the MR&T. And when I talk about the MR&T, I'm talking about the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project. You saw from Alex's slide, it gets a separate funding line. That started back in 1927 after the Great Flood, and the Congress moved very rapidly by the December of that year to pass legislation, and then the following year, the 1928 Flood Control Act, that kind of started this whole system approach for the Mississippi River and Tributaries system. There's some very important documents that were passed around. Steve Stockton, the Director for Civil Works, sent this around, and it was back from the Congress that met in 1927. In less than a year, they put together a pretty detailed analysis of how to approach this, and it was called the Jadwin Plan. The Chief of Engineers put that forward. It was sent to the Secretary of War and to the President of the United States and was passed by Congress the following year. So when you have a catastrophic failure like you did in the Great Flood of 1927, those are opportunities. They're times of opportunity, and I think right now we have another great opportunity to learn and communicate to the public. And one thing that we never want to see is Americans suffer such a tragic event as happened in 1927. We're doing everything in our power to reduce risk to the people and their property. And it also includes making very difficult choices and decisions. And you've seen some of those choices and decisions being made over the past few weeks, and I'll try to highlight a few of those decisions that were made. And we have about 500, the Corps of Engineers had about 500 people deployed right now on the MR&T flood fight. That changes a little every day, but that doesn't even include the local levee districts, the communities that are also engaged in this flood fight. It is a shared responsibility. Many of you are aware of that and are very engaged in these type decisions. The Mississippi River Commission, which is located in, General Walsh is the president of the Mississippi River Commission. He's from the Mississippi Valley Division located in Vicksburg, Mississippi. He is the president of the Mississippi River Commission, and they are coordinating the overall activities of this flood fight that includes much of the districts in the valley, 6 districts, and external folks from outside the region. This is a systems approach, so there's a lot of things that have happened from LRD, the Lakes and Rivers Division, and Ohio River Valley, and also Northwestern Division because of the Missouri River watershed. This is the agenda I'll be following. I'm just going to give a few highlights on the spring flood fight, kind of what we were looking at before this kicked off, some continuing challenges that you heard Alex talk about, and then I'll run through the MR&T components and try to give you an update on this. So for the spring flood fighting, this is the areas we were looking at a couple months ago. The Northwestern Division was having some challenges with flooding. Also up in the upper portion, you can see Devil's Lake around St. Paul. That's still ongoing. Then you look at the Mississippi Valley area. That's a current flood fight we're doing. And then you see the Ohio River Valley. And so all those systems contribute to the flood fight that's going on right now, minus Devil's Lake. That actually flows north towards Canada. But what I want to show you is some of the impacts that are going on and why they're going on. I talked earlier about 40% of the continental United States are affected by this current flood fight, and the reason that is because of this giant watershed. It's the world's third largest watershed. It drains about 41% of the continental United States. And if you look at all the different main stem rivers and tributaries that feed this system, you can see that area in red. That depicts the Great Flood of 1927. So that just gives you a little perspective of what that looks like. And what we're looking at the current state of the Mississippi River is this approaching and exceeding known crest throughout the lower Mississippi River system. That includes the Great Flood of 1927 and 1937. And in 1927, just to give you a little perspective on what this red area impacted, about 26,000 square miles, 16 million acres. It flooded 7 states: Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And as I said before, we're already approaching and exceeding some of those known crests for the lower Mississippi River. And the next slide I'll show you shows some of the stages that have already been broken. But right now in 2011, the consequences are even greater. And so in 2011, we have 4 million people living along the Mississippi River Valley. So this system is reducing risk, but it is a comprehensive project, and it is performing as designed currently. This slide's pretty busy, but what I want to focus you on, if you look at the red, those are the stages, those are new records. And so those exceeded the 1937 records on stages, and those stages are hard to equate because they're based on location, but if you look at them over history, they do mean something. And then if you look down toward the bottom of the slide and you see the gold print, those are areas that are projected to exceed records, and some of those date back all the way to 1927 flood. So you can see that there is a lot of water that is coming into the system. And this is a coordinated response. The water management professionals that are in the Corps of Engineers in all 3 divisions, Lakes and Rivers Division, also in Northwest Division and Mississippi Valley Division, have been coordinating this from the very beginning. There's a lot of reservoirs. You saw that reservoir slide earlier that showed the dots all over the United States, and they're in these watersheds, 41% of the drainage. And so we do have an ability to regulate some of the flows to mitigate some of the damages in the Mississippi Valley Division. So this is probably the most important slide I'm going to talk about today. And if you're interested in this, out on the core table, there's copies of this slide out. But this kind of gives you a visual conception of where the water comes from and how big the flows are, and they are tremendous. A lot of people, if you go up to the northern part of the Upper Miss, that's a pretty big river system. But then if you look at it in comparison with the lower Mississippi River system, it looks pretty small. But there's some still significant aspects of that system. So the major contributor for the MR&T system is, of course, the Ohio River. It contributes about 85% of the flow into the lower Mississippi River. So when you look at this, that's what happened. We received about 600 to 1,000% above normal rainfall in a normal period of time. So that's the driver for the current flood fight that we're in right now in the lower Mississippi River. And then if you look at the numbers on this, I just want to kind of walk you through this, and you see where the water starts at the top, and we'll start at number 1. And some people say, well, why wouldn't you start at the top? Well, the way this system has evolved over time is this is not just levees. It has natural floodways, it has backwater areas, it has structural floodways that were built into the system to actually relieve pressure off the main stem Mississippi River to protect the cities and the system below Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So if you look at this, look at number 1. Number 1 is the Old River system. And that complex is made up of several features that divert about 30% of the flow from the Mississippi River down the Atchafalaya River. And so that's currently in operation. That was in operation before the flood even began. That's a normal thing that happens every day. they split the flow of the river and put part of it down the Atchafalaya. If you go up to number 2 and you look at New Madrid floodway, and I'll talk about that a little later, that was one of the first decisions that had to be made, was whether to operate this floodway. This floodway has only been operated one time, 1937. And it was a very difficult decision. There were farmers in this floodway. There were structures in the floodway. A lot of questions about why we should operate this floodway. But that was part of the design system to relieve pressure and ensure integrity of the MR&T system. Then if you move down, you'll see number 3, which is a Bonacary spillway, and that's about 30 miles north of New Orleans. And that relieves pressure on the lower part of the MR&T when you get flows of about 1,250,000 cubic feet per second. So you're able to divert a substantial amount of water through Lake Pontchartrain into the Gulf of Mexico and protect and reduce the risk for the citizens in New Orleans. And then if you get flows even greater than that, which we're currently dealing with, you go to number 4, which is the Morganza floodway. The Morganza floodway has only been operated one time, 1973. And again, that has a large capability of pushing about 600,000 cubic feet per second of water off the Mississippi River into the Atchafalaya River. And with that are some consequences of its own, but it is a floodway. Every year, people that have, it's mainly agriculture, some structures in that floodway, especially at the lower end, about 10,000 structures, about 20,000 personnel are could be impacted from the operations of this floodway. And so those are very important aspects. And then number 5, if you go back up and see the West Atchafalaya floodway, that's never been used in the history of this system. And so this year we don't believe it'll be operated just mainly because of the flows in the Red River are pretty low for this event.